Good afternoon. How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Monday. Start of the work week here is upon us. It's July 14th, 2025, 12:34 p.m. local time. That's California time here. Latest activity shows a 1.9 earthquake up into Alaska. Boy, we got a lot of earthquake uptick going on here since roughly about last night. It all started off there with that pretty big 6.7 earthquake out into the Indonesia area. This earthquake, the largest in the last 30 days. It did stir up the Pacific plate a little bit more with some newer activity here in the southeastern Pacific. There's a 5.1, and then over here, a 6.2 earthquake. So we got quite a bit of shuffling going on underneath the South Pacific here, a portion of the southern Pacific plate. A lot of convection going on underneath this area, creating the stirring up of the plates right now. Does look like we got some newer activity up north as well. So we're looking at pretty much all four mini areas of the Pacific plate showing an uptick here. For California, I don't see it yet, but obviously we have to watch that closely there. It's possible we could see some adjustments soon here across this area. Decent earthquake, as I noted here, across Panama. It's a very shallow 6.2 earthquake striking out here just a couple hours ago. This area, of course, has been under quite a bit of strain here recently. We've had a bunch of earthquake up around Guatemala. That actually it was a 5.7. Excuse me, 6.2 is the more recent one down south. A lot of adjustment going on across the Middle America Trench. Definitely watch this area, but it's notable to point out the elevated movement out here across many areas of the Pacific plate here. I don't see anything major across New Zealand, but it's possible we could see that area hit next. It's been pretty active in terms of smaller magnitude quakes up and down the plate boundary, but watch these areas in that quiet zone there around the Alpine Fault. That could put some further strain on that section of the Pacific plate. And that's, obviously some concern. It's got some big-time potential for earthquake activity. Pretty quiet out here across the Papua New Guinea area eastward as well today. It's a little surprising. I thought this would fill in. It still may. You got to remember when things are on the uptick out here across the planet, and in this case, the Pacific plate, well, that's a good time to be prepared for some larger movement. See here, Japan has moved slightly up here. I know we had that earthquake up into the off the Kamchatka area late last night. Some newer movement stirring up here around Japan, focused primarily around the Japan Trench and into the Izu Trench here. That will probably put the strain out here against that subduction zone, the Nankai Trough here, where we've been watching that decent earthquake swarm. So it looks like there was a 4.8, smaller quake 3.6 up into the Japan Trench. This earthquake here from yesterday, but I do want to double check the Japan Meteorological Agency here. That kind of shows us what's going on there across the area of Japan. And I see it does look like last night we've seen a little bit of uptick around the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock time period, but since then it's been an earthquake or two every hour or so. Not seeing any major swarm going on. Our last one was at 12:18 local time here, so about 20 minutes ago for a 2.5. And that's going to be in this area down south here off of the Nankai Trough. This area has had a bunch of earthquake activity. Probably close, we're probably up around the 2,000 mark is what I'm guessing in the last couple weeks here across this area of Japan. Still watching the Nankai Trough there closely. So let's see here where California's at. If we got any further, I know where it's at obviously, but see if we got any further activity stirring up here above the 2.5 level. Let's see, 2.6 up in the Cobb area. That's a Clear Lake volcanic field. 2.6 down south. Some more activity there along the southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. So a slight uptick going on out here today. It does look pretty active across the Bay Area, mainly the Calaveras Fault Zone, with a number of earthquakes here being added onto the map. This may have gotten added here yesterday, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock time period here. So Hayward Fault pretty quiet for now. The creeping section of the San Andreas Fault still fairly active. I know that's a Parkfield section here, getting closer to the Parkfield segment, but staying right at the boundary there between the two. 1.3 from yesterday. Nothing new to report there for today. Southern California, if I had to note some stuff here of interest, it's going to be these series of quakes here around the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Now remember, this area has not had any rupture down here, that's this darker area, in over 300 years. The reality here is that pretty much the majority of the San Andreas Fault here, except for the extreme northern area where that 1906 earthquake struck, is at or above the regular reoccurrence interval of large quakes here along the San Andreas Fault. And that includes the central section, the southern section, including the extended southern portion down here. You got to remember, when this entirety here, the southern area, ruptures, that's going to produce an 8.1. Look at that, 300 years. You know, if we see the rupture start down south here where it's built up the most, obviously that will take this area that's got 213 years since the last big earthquake there with it. So a lot of time has passed here. You know, that's those numbers are an eye-opener there. So we got to watch this closely. Got one earthquake right on the southern branch here, one down south here as well, a more recent one. And over the last 7 days or so, we've had numerous swarms out here in this area of the state of California. One down south here, got that area up north just off of the San Andreas Fault here, and now some movement up here around it. So keep an eye on it. It could go at any given time. The question is when. You know, we don't know 100%. Some earthquake activity yesterday and today around the Tom's Place. That's south of Long Valley super volcano. Nothing big going on there for now. Up into the Pacific Northwest, still got a series of earthquakes up there around Mount Rainier, the latest of 1.5. So I guess we better go double check that, see what's going on there at Mount Rainier. It's still sitting at a green level. No unusual activity aside from, you know, a decent swarm. That's exactly what it is, but it's happening there above the magma chamber, but below the summit there, about 2 miles. Let me check the GPS stations here, see if we got anything changing. That one's offline. Should remember that by now. Here's the latest GPS runs. Nothing that tells me here that we're looking at any type of inflation. This is very minimal meters here. This is 0.005 meters. You know, that's not even a meter. So this is very non-existent in terms of inflation. There's no ground changes whatsoever there being observed across that volcano. And as far as the seismograph stations out there go, let's see if we can spot one. This one still shows quite a bit of earthquake activity out there, and there's still, you know, there's definitely still some movement going on. Let's see what we got here for the total count. I'm going to run over here to the PNSN network. We'll check this out real quick here at Mount Rainier, where we're looking at 587 earthquakes now. And that's just the ones they can pinpoint and determine the exact location, depth, and magnitude. There's many, probably hundreds of others that they're not able to do that with. So we're, you know, 6, 7, maybe getting close to the 900, maybe even 1,000 mark out here of earthquake activity there across the summit of Mount Rainier. But again, no changes in ground deformation. No magma movement. This is just what they believe to be hydrothermal activity there, fluids interacting with the faults above the magma chamber. And it's going down as far as the counts go compared to, you know, back when it started there on the 8th or 9th time period. This is the earthquakes per hour. We're going way down. Here is the depth of the earthquakes. No signs of anything coming up from below. Otherwise, we would see deeper quakes moving up here on this map to where we're at now. But this is all fluid movement interacting with the faults there across the summit area. Nothing new to report there. All right, Yellowstone National Park. Let's see what we got else up there across Seattle. Really some smaller microquake activity. Nothing going on across the Cascadia for now. Yeah, Yellowstone, a couple ones out there from yesterday. Let's see what we got here for the latest data. on this wonderful Monday. It's hot out there already underneath a heat advisory again. It's typical Southern California or Northern California weather. I don't know, Southern California gets hot, but not along the coast. I don't really see anything out here. A couple earthquakes from yesterday and maybe one from today, but it's pretty quiet out there across Yellowstone. Some of the larger events there are showing up. I believe this is the earthquake signal from the one down south here off the coast of Panama. It's a 6.2. That will show up, obviously, across seismograph stations, even if they are thousands of miles away, and that does match the time frame for that reading, so it's not a local quake. So aside from that, pretty quiet up there across Yellowstone, Texas area. Still getting some earthquakes out in the oil fields. Nothing new to report there. I think with this newer activity down south here, and further escalation out here across this divergent zone. Let's see, when did these strike? Was this one first? That was 1044. This was actually the first one. So some adjustment, allowing for some displacement back over here. Keep an eye on this section right here. That's the Caribbean plate. That is an area that gets pretty much squeezed here between two major plates to the north and the spreading Cocos plate here from the Pacific plate. That's going to be this boundary right here. That puts strain due east. See where all these arrows are kind of pointing? Right there across the Caribbean plate. So watch that. It's been, Middle America Trench has been quite active here recently with that earthquake in Guatemala and the swarm, and now this earthquake activity out here. That has to be applying further strain out here across this region. So watch the Caribbean plate. Puerto Rico got a little bit of earthquake movement up here, but mainly some low to mid-grade 3s out there. Nothing big going on for now. Quick glance at Hawaii. 2.1 looks to be the largest, or the latest. Let's go ahead and check out the Kilauea Volcano inflation map here. See if we have anything new to chat about. When the Pacific plate moves, obviously that can have an effect on the hotspot area where Hawaii sits as the Pacific plate moves over it. But we'll see here. Deformation data. Still, well, we leveled out a little bit. But we have seen that before in the past. It levels out and then will continue upwards. But right now, it still looks like we're on tap here, on cue, to see episode, 29 coming up next, I think. It's been going on rinse and repeat cycle here since December of last year. So I don't see any changes. Once we see, the readings here differentiate from what we have seen in the past, then we can assume that maybe something else is going on with the area below the summit of Kilauea Volcano, the crater area. But right now, it looks like we're on tap here to see an eruption in a number of days. Got probably at least 2 to 3 days maybe before that stirs back up. And that's at the Big Island, Kilauea Volcano. I would love to see that. That's some spectacular fountaining. All right, let's see. Alaska, anything major going on up there? A couple smaller quakes. There's that 5-pointer back over here along the Aleutian Trench, the extreme western end. A little bit of movement there around Alaska today with a 4.4 around the Cook Inlet. Aside from that, just looks like a typical day out there. I knew something was building out here yesterday, and it had this 6.7 struck right as I was about ready to call it a night here. But I figured I'd jump in and cover that earthquake there real quick before I went to bed. But on the previous update, we were talking about how this is definitely more cluttered than normal. And it's times of elevated seismicity that we have to, watch for some larger activity. It's always cracking out here, so to speak, in terms of earthquake movement in the crunch zone. And I call it the crunch zone, and I'll show you guys again real quick, because that's where, if you look at the general arrows here of all the plates, it kind of makes a big crunch out here with the general direction in that main area around Indonesia. So, definitely quite active. But I do expect with this newer activity here across the eastern side here of Japan to kick up maybe some further swarming there across the area south of the Nankai Trough. Watch that. We'll check back on that a little bit later, though. In New Zealand, got to watch that as well. Man, just super active down here. More so than normal. And I look at these maps every single day here, and that's a lot of earthquake activity around New Zealand. But it's skipping some of these locked areas, between areas south here, southern towards the southern end here of the Alpine Fault, leaving off the center section here, and then going up north here to New Zealand, North Island. So watch that boundary right here. Looks like that could be getting ready to produce some larger movement. A lot of threes, even a 4-pointer in there. It's all fairly shallow adjustment as well, so watch that area around New Zealand. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. There's an earthquake in Spain from last night, 5.2 earthquake, pretty shallow there. Seen that did a little damage locally. Nothing major going on across the Mediterranean for now. Let's go ahead and check out space weather activity here, see what we got. Beautiful. Oh, perfect timing here for the image of the sun here shooting off that prominence. I don't think that's Earth directed. I don't think, if it was, and we could talk about some, decent auroras coming up. That's a lot of plasma being shot off there and lifted off of the sun. We do have one up here, it looks like, but it almost looks like that's starting to lift off as well. Either way, beautiful image there of the sun. We'll check back on that, though, in a number of days. Maybe there's some Earth-directed component with it, but I don't think so. Flare threat, we're stepping up here a little bit into the mid-C flare category. Looks like it wants to sizzle a little bit, maybe pop off an M flare or two. Let's see what we got here for the solar flare department. We do have a number of sunspots that are currently directly facing the Earth. Really about the only one I'm concerned or focused on is going to be this area back here. A newer region back over here and a couple others back here, but main one I think is going to be here. I know this has, a deep color on it, but there's not a whole lot of complexity here. Same for these back over there. Here they're splitting, and that's normally a sign that they're decaying. But I think 4140 right there may have the best chance there of seeing anything. But then again, it shows that it's declining. So either way, flare threat somewhat moderate. We can see it on the data for ourselves that it's unstable with couple of these sunspots out here. 50% chance for M flare, X flare at 5%, C flare at 99% chance or so. No major auroras there in the forecast for now. And we'll take a look here at the next close approach asteroids here to the planet, where that's a pretty big one coming in, but 4 million miles away for a building size asteroid. We'll keep that far away from the planet. All these other ones here, decent size, but we're talking about millions of miles away, so nothing showing up here on the close radar for any asteroid approaches. For severe weather, got slight risk out here across areas of South Dakota into Wyoming. No tornado threat today, according to the Storm Prediction Center. We do have some wind and a little bit of hail threat up north here across North Dakota and Montana. But it appears the main threat is going to be some damaging wind gusts today from some of these thunderstorms that pop up. Seismograph stations are offline for now, but they've been doing that here over the last couple weeks. Just they'll go offline, then come back on for a minute or two, and then go offline. But at least it's working. Another earthquake up here across the southern end towards the Cascadia subduction zone right now. 2.6. I wanted to see what that looks like because it'll show up here. A 2.6 guaranteed to show up on the Petrolia station, so we'll wait for that for a second. Looks like another earthquake up there across Mount Rainier as well. Negative 1.4. That's a little bit deeper. See, there's definitely that's a pretty much a swarm that may go down there in the history books, far as this volcano goes, Mount Rainier. Previous to the 80s, though, this is somewhat, new equipment that's up here that's monitoring this activity. So there's not a whole lot of data in regards to any swarms, previous 80s time period. But for as far as that 2009 swarm goes and any other swarm, this one has it beat. That's for sure. The USGS here showing 590 earthquakes in the last 30 days, focused right at Mount Rainier. Some stress quakes right against the volcano here on the western side. But again, I still think that I don't see anything that's really deep. That's going to tell me this is magma, pushing up from below. There's always hot spots underneath here, fluid interaction with the heated areas below. But according to the USGS volcano site there, it's only about 30% molten as far as the magma chamber goes down there. So we'll continue to watch that. Obviously, decent amount of earthquake activity, and it's interesting to watch for sure. All right, seismograph stations here. Come on, I wanted to see that 2.6. I wanted to see what it looked like on there. Let me see if anything stirred back up here across Japan. Nope, last one was 2.5. That was at 12:18. It's almost an hour ago. Off and on swarming, but we're still seeing earthquake activity out there, and it's still, it has periodic swarms here where it just kind of kicks up and has about 15 earthquakes or so per hour. Right now, as you can see, it's like one every other hour. Earlier this morning, there was, one or two every hour, but nothing big for now. All right, there we go. There's the seismograph station there across Petrolia, showing that 2.6 earthquake. One earthquake down there in Anza, too. That's in Southern California. So we'll keep an eye on things. When we get these larger earthquakes that happen and show up here on the map that, the Pacific plate is on the move, that's when other areas could definitely see some uptick. I think we need to watch California, New Zealand for sure. There's so much activity scattered all over the Pacific plate here, and that will have an effect on elevated earthquake potential across numerous areas. So we'll continue to watch that today, and of course provide any updates. I try to do 6.0 and above update videos. Now, if it's like a 5-pointer in Southern California or anywhere out here in the States, that's a decent earthquake, so I'll pop up here and do a video update. But if it's a 5-pointer down across the Peru Chile Trench or the Middle American Trench, those are pretty common earthquakes there. Same for out here across the Indonesia area. I mean, they had a number of 5-pointers yesterday, including a 6.7. But I try to cover anything that happens out here globally, 6.0 and above. Have a good one, folks. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, unless something major happens. Of course, we're going to jump back in, but enjoy your Monday. Take care.